I wish you luck in realizing your ambition.
Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello and welcome back to Everything Possible in Elden Ring here at the Church of Ella. Last time we made it all the way from the Church of Ella to over that hill in the very near distance. We did tackle the Graveside Grotto and we talked about a number of mechanics, including going into in-depth with a guard counter finally. And today is going to be no exception. We'll be talking about some mechanics, but hopefully advancing quite a bit further this time around. But before we do that, as always, here are my stats. Pause it here if you want to see it for any longer. As for gear, nothing's changed. We have the longsword, the halberd, the heater shield, the Vagabond Knight set, helm off of course. The flask of Crimson Tears, the flask of Cerulean Tears is on my item pouch. And I have the bone dart and I have the glowstone. On the item pouch, I also have the Lone Wolf Ashes and of course the Spectral Steed Whistle, because we now have the ability to ride Torrent. Now, we're going to be heading to the Gatefront Ruins. We're finally going to be tackling that enemy encampment and getting a lot of really good loot and opening up another mechanic that, yes, we're going to be spending an inordinate amount of time talking about. So, let's go ahead and fast travel. I'm going to bring up my map using the touchpad on the DualSense controller. Here is the Gatefront Ruins, and we're going to this lost site of Grace, Gatefront. And of course, you can see the Guidance of Grace heading that way, but we aren't going to be taking that guidance for some time. So here we are at Gatefront Ruins, and notice the symbol on the left-hand side looks like a grave marker or a gravestone. That is the symbol that tells us that we can finally use our spirit summons, the Lone Wolf Ashes that we got from Rena at the Church of Ella. I'm not going to be using them just yet, but we will be calling them into action very soon. But remember, I had mentioned that there's a little obelisk, and if you see that, that is the Stone of Remembrance that allows you to summon your spirit ashes. Well, that symbol on the screen also tells you when you can summon them. Now, it is nighttime, and if you saw out in the distance, it looks like they've kind of flown a little bit too far. There are bats active. There's only a few of them, and they're not too difficult to contend with, although remember early on I definitely struggled with them a bit. But in order to make it, number one, a little bit brighter, and two, get those bats to avoid us completely, I'm going to pass the time until morning. And since we have the option here, we're also going to take some time to talk to Malenia again.
Me? I'm searching for my purpose, given to me by my mother inside the Erd Tree, long ago, for the reason that I yet live, burned and bodiless. There is something for which I must apologize. I've acted the Finger Maiden, yet can offer no guidance. I am no maiden. My purpose was long ago lost.
Really cryptic dialogue from Malenia talking about how she's searching for her purpose that was given to her by her mother a long time ago. Just who is her mother? Well, maybe we'll talk about that in a very, very distant episode, because there's a lot of stuff coming out right now, actually this morning on Twitter, with some cut content and some things that people are finding in the files that may give us some canonical clues as to who that person is. But go ahead and leave your thoughts, your comments, your rumors in the comments below. We'll talk about that. Over yonder, just on the slope of that hill, there is a developer message. We'll go check that out in a little bit, but I actually prefer to take this camp on from this direction. But before we go and just take it on, let's use our telescope and see exactly what we are working with. We have this spear-wielding Godric soldier here. We have that individual with a bugle, and yes, that is someone who, if you try and attack them and don't kill them quick enough, if he brings that up to his lips, he will alert the entire camp to your location, and there are a number of enemies. You also have the Godric Knight that is patrolling alongside the bugle, definitely the boss of this area, not really a boss, but much more difficult than the standard soldiers. Someone lying in wait there. There was a dog patrolling. You can see an enemy with a war pick just over there. And another enemy there, and there's another one on the other side of that wall, and there's another spear on the other side. There's a lot of enemies. There are a lot of enemies. We can take this slow. We can take this stealthy, we can go in guns a-blazing and just hope for the best. My plan is to actually hug this left side, get some sneak attacks on a few enemies, then give the area just a really wide berth, go around that side and kind of take it almost in a spiral pattern. But I do want to take out that bugle player pretty quickly, otherwise, well, we're going to be in a world of hurt. So what we're going to do, we're going to start in a crouch position in stealth, and right in front of this caravan here, we can get a backstab. And since no one is nearby and he didn't drop anything, let's open up this chest, and inside we get a very good early game weapon, the Lord Sorn's Greatsword. In fact, let's take a look at that right now. I'm actually going to remove the halberd for this, but the Lord Sorn's Greatsword, it is a greatsword. Of course, it's in the name, but it comes with the skill Stamp Uppercut. And if you read about that, you brace the armament. This actually puts you into a defensive stance that increases your poise and allows for some damage to be absorbed. Just for a second or two, and then afterwards, if you want, you can follow it up with a strong attack for a really powerful upward strike attack. Deals a lot of stance damage. You can also follow it up with a light attack, which doesn't cost FP, but doesn't do nearly the same amount of damage. It does require 16 strength, so you can see down in the bottom right, or kind of off-center right in the middle, the attributes required, strength 16, I only have 14. But as we've mentioned, we can two-hand items in order to give us an artificial boost to our strength. In fact, if I try to wield this, it tells me, unable to use this item effectively with the present attributes unless wielded with both hands. Well, let's do just that, and let's take a look right there, the physical attack power. 136 minus 54. I have a negative scaling because I don't meet the attributes, and if you look over at our total attack power, our armament 1, right armament 1, it's only 81. But if I two-hand it by holding down the interact button and then the right bumper, and then we go back into the equipment, you can see that it's 136 plus 25 for a total attack power of 161. This also will now allow us to use the Stamp Uppercut skill. So let's actually play with this a little bit. We can use the skill, we can use the guard counter on the Lord Sorn's Greatsword. Another thing to note is that this does have a critical modifier of 110. Remember our discussion on criticals? The critical modifier can only be used to compare similar weapons. I cannot use the Lord Sorn's Greatsword at 110 critical modifier and compare it to a dagger, let's say of 110. It doesn't equate across categories. I would have to compare it to other greatswords. But if you're going for a critical based build and you want to play with greatswords, this is definitely a nice viable early option. Let's ignore the bugle player for now. Let's get nice and low. You might have seen this monument here with a shiny. We will be going there very soon. And we're just going to sneak around here, grab ourselves some herba. And we have this enemy right here. Let's get the drop on him before he gets too close to any other enemies. These soldiers, and along with the vast majority of enemies in Elden Ring, whatever they are wearing, whatever weapon they are wielding, you can get. But some of the notable exceptions are, well, this weapon right here. The Lord Sorn's Greatsword can only be gotten from that chest. Even though other enemies do wield it, you will not be able to get it unless you loot it from that chest. There is a chest behind me, but now I want to go ahead and just play with this Stamp Upward Cut. I always call it Uppercut. So you can see, yes, I did take some damage, but I wasn't recoiled by the enemy's attack. So I took less damage than I would have if I hadn't been using that skill, and chances are if I had just tried to attack him outright, I would have been stopped as soon as he hit me. So on the back of this caravan, we get one of my favorite early game weapons that we won't be able to use for a bit, the flail. And why do I love the flail so much? Because the flail, which says I'm unable to use it effectively with present attributes, is a genuine flail with flail physics. Now, it does require 18 dexterity. I only have 13, 5 more levels, and I would be able to use this, or unless I had some gear that inflate my dexterity, which at this point we don't. It is, we can take a look here, it is a flail category. It is a strike damage weapon, really good against some of those early enemies that are resistant to pierce and slash. Spinning chain. So spinning chain is a really fun skill that I can't show off because I don't have dexterity, but as you hold down the skill button, you will spin the flail directly in front of you at 8 FP per tick. So the initial cost is 8 FP, and as you hold it down, you'll continue over time to use 8 FP every tick. And then in parentheses, it has 8 and 10. And that is because if we read the description, let me back up here. If we read the description of Spinning Chain, we can follow up the spin with a normal or strong attack to link the momentum into a successive attack. So a light attack would deal or would cost another 8 FP, 10 would be for a heavy attack. But at the bottom, it also has a passive effect of 50 blood loss buildup. And now is when we're going to take just a very, very quick moment to talk about blood loss or hemorrhaging. We've already talked about the kukris right here that also have blood loss buildup, but hemorrhaging is a returning feature from many of the Souls games, even if you don't want to count Dark Souls 2's version of blood loss, which I would completely understand if you didn't. But as you attack an enemy with any weapon, throwable item, or incantation that has bleed buildup, an invisible gauge of the enemies is going to fill up, similar to stance damage. And if you can fill that meter, the enemy will hemorrhage. They will lose blood, and they'll be hurt for 15% of their maximum HP if it's a regular enemy, 7% if it's a boss, as well as an additional 1 to 200, it seems, depending on the weapon type, out all at once. It is big burst damage, but not all enemies can be bled. But you can bleed, and frankly, no one makes me bleed my own blood. And that is my discussion on hemorrhaging, aka blood loss. Really, really fun mechanic, very, very powerful. There's a weapon that you can get just over that way in the lake, Agil Lake, that will carry you for quite a bit if you are focusing on blood loss. Now, as you can see, I'm just passing really, really far away from the Godric Knight over there, and I'm going to be heading towards the front of the Gatefront Ruins. So let's do just that. That ruin straight ahead, that is where the Teardrop Scarab was that refilled our Crimson Flasks. But let us get all the way to the front. Let's take a look at the developer message, and then we can just take this enemy on just as he faces us. A chamber lies under the ruins. We mentioned this last time. Every official ruin does have some sort of subterranean section to it. And if you can find it, there's usually some very valuable loot inside. This one absolutely has something you don't want to miss. Let's do a guard counter against him. You can see there, with that great shield of his, it is not easy to break through his guard. I wasn't even able to break it with the Lord Sword's Greatsword with a guard counter, which deals some significant stagger damage. Okay, looping up here, there are a couple of enemies. In fact, I'm going to just run around. I don't even need to worry about crouching just yet. There's a passage I could have taken, but now I can get a backstab, and then this other enemy will see me, and that's fine. Really getting unlucky with the drops here. Absolutely love Stamp Upward Cut. Very, very strong tool. Got some rune fragments. Now's when we need to consider getting that bugle player, however. We just need to make sure we do it when the knight is nowhere near. So this is unfortunate timing. That item right there at the monument, though, that is the map fragment. That is extremely important for us to get, because then, well, we can actually see what it is we're doing and where we're going. But let's be patient. Also, by these braziers, this one and that one over there, there are smoldering butterflies, a really, really important crafting item that we want to pick up if we want to start making the throwing fire pots. There's the kill here. And I'm going to get the backstab on this enemy, then I'm going to kind of get away. I don't want that knight seeing me just yet. Okay, looks like we can grab the smoldering butterfly. Perfect. As I said, the smoldering butterfly, pretty much anything to do with fire is going to require smoldering butterfly. They do respawn, so if we want to respawn at the site of grace and then grab these again, we certainly could, but there are better farms for it eventually. Still not summoning the wolves, and we're still not taking on the knight just yet. But now we have a few enemies and their dogs. But if we want to make it a bit of a fair fight, let's see if we can't pull. And Stamp Uppercut. Take it. We have the wolves coming here. Now the wolves, the problem with the Lord Sword's Greatsword is that the guard counter is a little bit slow, and they will often jump out of the way. So we may actually have to use stamp upward cut against them as well. There we go, and I will just heal up. There are better ways to do this so you're not taking nearly as many hits, but I do want to show off these mechanics. Okay. He just wants to stand there while I jump and heavy attack him. Do have the enemy here. And there is another dog, but we can just get the backstab here. We're getting really unlucky. Really unlucky with our lack of drops here. So at this point, we only have, I believe, these 2 enemies left. I thought there was another dog. I was mistaken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly backstab this spear wielder. Oh, and there's one more. Actually, the knight still hasn't seen me, so we'll just go ahead and stamp uppercut again, or upward cut. Big, big damage. And now, we do need to use our Flask of Cerulean Tears to refill our FP. Let's bring out the dogs, and let's just watch how well they can just ping-pong the knight here. In the meantime, I'm going to grab this golden rune 1. Oh, I am medium rolling. Actually, heavy rolling. So let's let them come to us. And watch as they just start to stagger him repeatedly. So now, we can do what we like. We can just let them solo him. Or, if we want, we can get behind and get a free backstab. And then if we want, we can just finish it with a nice... Oh, I was going to say a charge R2, but he decided not to allow us just to get that free kill. Not a single drop from any of the soldiers in this area. But an interesting thing just happened. Notice, I now have my Flask of Cerulean Tears back and my Flask of Crimson Tears. That is a mechanic. I don't know if it has an official title, but I like to call it the Group Flask Recharge mechanic. In other words, when you kill specific groups of enemies, and occasionally it's only a single enemy, your flasks will be restored. You won't always get all of them. It seems to depend on the size of the group or the difficulty of the group. But if you're in an area with a group of enemies, you can rest assured that even if you use a flask or 2, likely you're going to get those back at the end. Keep in mind that mechanic does not happen if you are in a cave, a catacomb, or what is known as a legacy dungeon like Stormvale Castle that we'll be going into in quite some time. Right, so with all the enemies finally dead, the wolves are still here. The wolves are going to last until they're either killed, I send them away, or if I leave the area, and you can see that they'll actually kind of fade away if I were to run away. Let's grab this other golden skull. We do want some runes here. In fact, I'm going to tell you right now, we want to have about 4,800 runes before we get to the next big location, which is the beach over by the first steps. Let's grab the map of Limgrave West. Map fragment found, and as we open up the map, you can see that it is now laid out before us. But as we scroll out, we can see it's only a small portion. Let's take a look at a few key features right now. Over here, this is where the Chapel of Anticipation is. This is where we fought the Crafted Scion. Well, right here, that's the courtyard where we fought the Crafted Scion. Over here, this island, we're actually going to be going here very quickly. We have this large lake. This is Agil Lake or Lake Agil. This symbol right here, though, be on the lookout for these. These are the mines. If you ever see that symbol, and you'll see quite a few of them, you can go in there and you will absolutely find several smithing stones for your upgrade, which is very important. Some other symbols, though, these little circles that you find dotted around the map, these are Everjails. These are areas that contain potentially some really difficult bosses. So be wary about going into the Everjail if you're not prepared. These are kind of created in the topographic map style. In other words, you can see by the markings and the shading what the elevation is. You can see here that this is certainly lower than here. It seems to be that the darker the area, the lower it sits in elevation, getting brighter as you go up. So you can kind of see when there are some cliff faces. Some of those you would be able to get up, others you'd have to go around, and yet others, there will be a feature known as a Spirit Spring, where you can use Torrent to get to the top of, and we'll be seeing one of those a little bit later on. Then we also have this symbol here, which is a telescope, and we're going to be going there in just a moment. But first, I do want to head over. As I said, every ruin does have a basement. Here is this one, and as we head down, we have a chest with an incredibly invaluable tool. And the topic of our next very long-winded explanation, the Ash of War Storm Stomp and the Whetstone knife. Get ready. get some popcorn because I'm about to lay down some information. This information confused me for much longer than it should have during my original playthrough, and even now I'm still trying to wrap my head around all the intricacies of this ability. But we've just opened up yet another option at a Site of Grace, and that is to apply Ashes of War, like the one that we just picked up in this chest, to our weapons. But here's the way the Whetstone knife works is, so we can now change our skills using Ashes of War at a Site of Grace. For example, as I hit the wrong button, the Lordsworn's Greatsword has the stamp upward cut, the flail has spinning chain, the longsword has square off. If I want to apply something else, let's say the Ash of War we just picked up, which is the Storm Stomp, I can now do so at a Site of Grace. Doing so allows you to also change the affinity of the weapon. In other words, the attribute scaling, as something that we've already talked about previously. But with the Whetstone knife, the one that we just picked up, you can only change it from whatever the standard affinity is of the weapon to the Ash of War's included affinity. Every Ash of War has a specific affinity included, and we can now change to it with the Whetstone knife. For example, if I go back to the Ash of War Stomp, you can see that it has the quality affinity. Quality meaning that the strength and dexterity attributes are fairly even. They can even be increased evenly with the quality affinity. But now we need to go into kind of what affinities are and just how they function. Affinities in Elden Ring are broken up into several types or groupings. There are physical, which includes standard, what every weapon typically starts with, heavy, which increases the strength scaling, keen, increasing the dexterity scaling, and quality, which adds or balances the strength and dexterity scaling. The next group is magic, which includes magic, of course, that includes intelligence scaling and magic damage, or cold, which is intelligence scaling, magic damage, and frost buildup. We haven't talked about frost yet, that's going to be a bit down the line. Then there's flame, which includes fire, adding strength scaling and fire damage, and flame art, which is faith scaling and fire damage. I know, it gets complicated. Then there's the golden group, which includes lightning, increasing dexterity scaling and adding lightning damage, sacred, faith scaling and holy damage. And then lastly, there is the occult grouping, which includes poison, adds poison buildup, blood, adds blood loss buildup, and occult, which adds arcane scaling. Adding arcane scaling, of course, can help you to apply certain status effects like blood or poison or frost for that matter. In just about all of these scenarios, changing an armament or a weapon to a different affinity is going to lower the base weapon damage. But hopefully the goal would be to actually increase the overall damage by adding to the attribute scaling, so your attribute bonus would outweigh the loss from your base damage. But we're going to take a look at that in action here momentarily, and I hope that made sense. Right now though, as I said, we can only change the affinity to whichever Ash of War or whichever affinity is included in the Ash of War that we want to change it to. I can't put a magic on this Lordsworn's Greatsword until I find either an Ash of War that has a magic affinity, or until I find a Wet Blade that will allow me to choose that. When I say Wet Blade, there are 5 additional Wet Blades that we need to collect in order to open up all of the affinity options. Currently, as I've already mentioned, we can only change it to the affinity included in the Ash of War we want to use. I know I kind of keep repeating myself, but I want to make it very clear how this works. Once we have all of the other Wet Blades, we can use any Ash of War, well, provided that Ash of War works on our particular weapon, and then we can select any affinity to apply on it. Just a quick note, not all weapons are subject to Ashes of War. Some of them have unique skills that cannot be altered, which means you cannot change the affinity. Just keep that in mind. If you don't see it in the menu, it's either because you don't have the Wet Blade that you need, or the item itself just cannot be modified. Did you get that? Right. Okay, hope you were taking notes. Now, let's take just a quick look though at that Ash of War, Storm Stomp. Grants affinities and skills to an armament, that's what they all say. So Storm Stomp, this is an interesting one. I wouldn't say it is the best early game Ash of War, but it is an AoE that causes minor damage, but actually really good stun potential. Not necessarily stagger, where the enemy is going to be opened up for a critical, but if you're being surrounded, the Storm Stomp can at least give enemies pause and allow you to open up into a combo. This works on all melee armaments, as you see at the bottom of that description. Anytime you get an Ash of War, take a moment, pull it up in your menu. You will learn what affinity it includes, how the skill works, but also what weapons it can work on. We're going to get another one later in this episode that doesn't work on all melee armaments, and the skill will tell us exactly which ones it does and which ones it does not. Okay, all that being said, excuse me wolves, we are now headed out of the Gatefront Ruins, and we're going to be grabbing these smoldering butterflies. I definitely want to pick those up. And then just over here, we have our next set of crates. As I said, they can be very, very frequent. And the wolves have now disappeared because I'm outside of the range that they can be summoned in. They don't just last forever. So let's rest here. We can now take a look at our new option to change the Ashes of War. So on the Lord Sorin's Greatsword, now I love Upward Cut, so I'm going to be leaving that. But if I wanted to put on Storm Stomp, I could. And if I do so, it also gives me the option of using the included affinity, which is quality. There is also a small symbol you can notice in the top right corner or the bottom right corner of the symbol of the sword over on the right hand side. It changes depending on which affinity you're trying to use. So that is the one with the hand there, that is the one for quality, and then that straight blade, that is just the standard. But I think I will put it on. Let me actually go, this is just your equipped armaments. Let me go to my regular melee. I think I will put it on the halberd. So we'll get rid of Charge Forth, even though that's an extremely good skill. And let's take a look at standard versus quality. In order to decide which one that you want to go with, you need to do a little bit of math. So I need to take a look at my physical attack power plus the attribute bonus, and then I need to compare it to that of the quality. So right now, the physical, the base is 125, and the attribute bonus is 27, giving me a total of 152 attack power. With quality, you can see the arrow pointing to the right, it drops from 125 base to only 108, but it scales the attribute bonus up to 32. However, this is only a total of 140, so I'm overall losing damage by going to quality. If I were to increase my strength and dexterity enough, chances are quality will win out over the standard affinity, but you need to take a look at that every time and really just take a look at the red and blue. That'll really give you a good idea whether or not it's going to be enough for you, except for the fact that, well, the base went down, but the attribute bonus went up, so okay, math is still involved. I'm sorry. But I do want to put that on, and I'll just leave it as standard. And then I think what we'll do is we'll actually put that back on along with our longsword. Yes, we do have Torrent, so we could be riding, but instead what I want to do is first off avoid that enemy. I am going to show you how to kill him here relatively easily in just a moment. But as we start to approach the telescope,
You there. Could you help us out, Cully?
the range of this NPC's dialogue and that item were actually added similar to the message about the Cave of Knowledge because too many players, myself included, were missing this interaction altogether. So they expanded the range that he would trigger his dialogue, and they added this Arteria leaf to draw your attention to this area. And as you get closer, the voice will continue.
Anyone look me in the eye? I'm not that ugly, am I?
And if you're wearing headphones, it makes it a lot easier to figure out that there's something up with this tree.
What'd you go and do that for? Oh, yes, I remember. Some clod turned me into a tree. You were just breaking the spell, weren't you? Thank you. The name's Bok. I was pushed out of the cave, told not to come back, not ever. Then I ended up as a tree. Lucky you came along, really. Oh, what a shame. When they threw me out of the cave, they took everything I owned, and so this is all I have to express my thanks. I hope you can forgive me.
We've been going out of our way to collect mushrooms, so Bok, I do appreciate the fungal gesture.
Or, well, if you can afford to wait for a while, I could sneak back into the cave and bring back something of actual value. then I'd be of some real use to you, I reckon. Right, but I'll need a moment. I'm frightened of them, so I have to gather myself. My knees start knocking, just thinking about that god-awful cave on the shore.
This is Bach, one of the best NPCs in the game, even if what he offers you, other than the mushrooms of course, is a little bit lackluster. We'll get to that in a bit, but he references a cave on the shore. Now that we have the map, well, the closest shore other than the lake shore would be this stretch of beach right here, and that is where we're going to be heading here very shortly. But he said that he needs a moment, so we'll give him some time. We'll go do a couple other things before we hopefully will meet him there. Right, so that's Bach. I did say I was going to show you how to take down this Caden warrior. Now, do have another golden rune here. There are a number of ways to take them on. You can do so on foot. You could parry them, which will actually knock them off of their horse. You can fight them by horseback. There are a lot of ways to do it. My preferred method, and I only just devised this about a week ago, but it works so well, is to start on Torrent, hit their horse, not focus on the rider themselves, but the horse, because once you kill the horse, I'm sorry, it's a necessary evil. The Caden warrior will fall to the ground, and actually you can get a critical if you're fast enough. So what I do is I will get the horse to within a sliver of its health. I will dismount Torrent, hit the horse one final time, and then I can get the critical on the Caden. And if we get really lucky, we could get either some of their armor or the weapon, which is the dismounter. You can see here we actually have two different targets. I'm going to be going after the horse here, and I'm going to be doing my R2, get a couple of big hits, and I can probably do one more before I need to get off and then attack. So what I'd like to do is get some distance, and he can do this really big charge attack like this one. Once he swings, I will hit the horse, perfect, and now just one more R1. Let's get out of the way here, and there it is. He's down, and there's the critical for a ton of damage. The horseback Caden warriors are no joke, but that is the best method that I have come up with in order to take them out relatively safely. There are a number of other enemies and loot to be had up here, but we're not going there just yet. All I want to do now is ride up here to these swords, grab some earthly flowers, but I want to read this inscription. Godric the Golden, humiliated, having tasted defeat by the blade of Mikola, now on his knees, begging for mercy. We've heard about Godric now a few times, and we're just outside of Stormvale Castle where we know that he resides. So we could go up there and we could grab some more smoldering butterflies, but I think that is it for this area. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to fast travel, open up our menu, and go back to the first step where White Mask Vari can be found. And from here, we're just going to immediately cut this way. Again, you could be on Torrent for this. In fact, there's really no valid reason not to. Grab some herba, and we're hopping down. We could have done this early on, but I had mentioned the holy water pots that we could craft. But in order to do so, we need these flowers right here. The tarnished golden sunflowers. So the tarnished golden sunflowers are going to be to craft the holy pot as well as the roped holy pot. You can see that we can now craft those right here, mushroom and tarnished golden flower, as well as we can craft fire pots because we have smoldering butterflies. But there are two more golden sunflowers right here. So let's grab those, and of course they will respawn. They are not exceedingly rare. There's another strong enemy that we're going to be fighting here, but what I want to do is hug this cliff right here, and then as soon as there are rocks below us, right here for example, I'm going to hop down just to grab a few more mushrooms. You can never have too many of these. And as we ride up here, we're going to see a very large and imposing troll. When we get close to him, he will roar, which gives us a little bit of an opportunity to get a free hit on him. But what we want to do is not try and just bait attacks or anything like that. We want to get under his feet while he's still kind of not really paying attention to us, and we want to get some charge R2s to bring him down. When you bring down the trolls, they open themselves up for a critical right at the top of their head. So So I'm actually going to go back to the Lord Sword's Greatsword for this. Make sure I two-hand, otherwise I won't do much damage. I'm doing this because of that critical modifier. We should be able to do some decent damage. I'm going to wait till he gets a little bit closer. So the goal is to do 2 charge R2s to his ankles, drop him, get a critical, and then as he's coming up, he's actually going to pull the sword off of his back, which should give us enough time to get some more free charge attacks to his feet. So here we go. There's 1. There's 2. He comes down. Get to the top, and if you're quick, you can actually get a free hit and then the critical. Sometimes even 2 hits. Look at that damage. Okay, get under. Okay, he's not actually going to grab the sword out just yet, it seems, but now he should. Oh, he's not, so I'm going to take some damage here. That's okay. There it is. And as he pulls it out, he's immediately going to bring it down to a slam, but we can get a couple of charge R2s again. And a third. Bring him down for a second time, and that should finish him off. Look for the gold. Oh, look for the golden spot. And we just missed it. He was just about to get up. But there we go. It's not too bad if you have a strong weapon and can get under his feet for those R2s. Otherwise, you can just attack him from range, attack him with spells, consumables. Fire pots are really effective against them. Otherwise, just get under there, knock him down, get some crits. Heading down to the beach. Oh, good. We got another golden rune here. What is our rune count? 2,600. A little bit low, a little bit light. That's okay. We could always farm the Gatefront Ruins if we need to. A few more mushrooms up here. And what we're doing is we're heading down to this beach. And on this beach, there are a few enemies. There are some giant land octopus. There are some small regular land octopus. But then we have this really peculiar shimmer without anything leaving a noticeable sign. This is a teardrop scarab, similar to the one that refills our crimson flasks, but this one is going to give us something else entirely. So let's wait until shimmer comes around this rock, and then I'm going to hold down my R2 and miss completely. Perfect, change nothing. We'll go back to this rock. What I'm trying to do is catch this creature kind of in the act. Oh, missed again. All right. If you have some sort of AoE, that can actually work really well. There we go. But we get another Ash of War. Ash of War stamp sweep. Let's take a look at that in our inventory. So the Ash of War stamp sweep, by the way, let me go back because you may notice that our other Ash of War is gone. It's not gone, it is simply currently on an existing weapon. You don't lose them when you put it on a weapon, but you do lose that particular one. You can actually have multiples of the same depending on where you get them, how you buy them. But for now, it's not there just because we already have it on one. But you can take a look here. It grants the heavy affinity, so that's going to increase our strength scaling, and the following skill. It's similar to the stamp upward cut that we have on the Lord Sword's Greatsword, but you brace your armament, you get additional poise, damage negation, and then the follow-up with a heavy attack is this low sweeping attack, so really good for groups of enemies. You can also follow it up with a light attack, doesn't cost any FP, but again, it's not part of that official combo. Usable on swords, axes, and hammers, but it is excluding small and medium swords, so I believe it's only on great swords or above that you can use the stamp sweep. Very cool item indeed. Now these birds down here, these birds seem, and I haven't actually done full tests, but they seem to have a greater drop rate of, and there we go, the 4-toed Foulfoot. This is how we can craft the silver and the gold pickled Foulfoot, the ones that increase our rune acquisition and our item discovery. In fact, we're going to be picking up a gold version here in a little bit. You can get them from the eagles that perch up high, but the drop rate seems to be much, much lower than these little penguin puffing looking creatures. So I might as well grab a few more of these if we can. I'll also take flight pinions because we do want some arrows here soon. Yeah, drop rate is just so good. Let's get back up here. I'm going to get off torrent, makes it sometimes easier to collect. There we go, another Foulfoot. Oh, I love when it's nighttime on the beach. And over here we have another Caden warrior. This time there is no mount, and he's actually sleeping. So if we walk right up to him, we are not going to be discovered until we do something to him or make a lot of noise. But I have 2 flasks of Crimson Tears left. I'm actually going to use another one just because, and I want to show this off. And you know what? Let's be a bit rude here. launch him up into the air. As he starts to come up, charge R2. He is gone. And even though that was only a single enemy, we got one of our flask of Crimson Tears back. Grab this smoldering butterfly, grab this strip of white flesh, and let's make our way to the land octopus. You may have noticed the symbol on the left that appears when I get a bit closer. You can summon your wolves for this section. I wouldn't say it's entirely necessary. In fact, killing these enemies is certainly not necessary, but there is a drop that I really want to get from the regular land octopus. It can be a bit rare. But before I summon, let's have a little fun with the big ones. Those big tentacles, those large tentacles can be cut very easily. Not only can they be cut, but they are very deadly. You can get caught in a big wombo combo, and that will knock you down from fairly substantial health to next to nothing, if not nothing. But once you cut them, they're a lot easier to deal with. Two things to keep in mind. If you don't cut them, once you damage them enough, they will actually eat their own tentacles to regain health. And they can also regrow those tentacles, so be quick. They are heavily damage resistant, but they're very weak to criticals, and they go down for criticals very, very quickly. Let's start by just running in with an R1. There's one tentacle. There's two. Let's do a stamp upward cut. Knock him into the critical state. Get one hit, and then critical time. And let's just back up, let him recover. One charge R2 is all it takes to knock him into that critical state again. Very, very easy, as long as you time that charge R2. If you do it too quickly, you will still have invincibility frames and you won't be able to get the kill just yet. But that octopus down, the large one I should say. Let's deal with these smaller ones. No drops there. And we also got flasks back. So we're back up to full flask, which is very, very nice. And we get a land octopus ovary. The land octopus ovary is a crafting item that will allow you to make staunching boluses, invigorating cured meat, invigorating white cured meat, as well as blood boil aromatics. So we have another large one over here. Let's do the same thing. We're just gonna run in. Actually, let's grab this item since he's not too keen of us just yet. Another land octopus over there. Looping around. Oh, there we go. One tentacle down. And looks like he's getting that wombo combo. I'm going to get out of there. Don't want to get caught in that. It can be rather dangerous. But so can, not hitting him. Alright, we're just going to do stamp uppercut. There we go. That allows us to get our poison, so I don't get too rocked by that combo. After this, I'm going to heal up. Charge R2. And he did actually go down that time. That's alright. Jump R2s can also work. Oh, it's because he was regrowing his arm, so he had a bit of hyper armor there. And we want to get out of there. There we go. And get the critical. I'm going to cut that tentacle off. Yep, actually he died. So not everything goes according to plan, but as long as you have a backup plan, you should be a-okay. We have another turtle over there, turtle/tortoise. I hope you learned about the differences and really why some can be called one and others can't be. The gist of it is all tortoises are turtles. Not all turtles are tortoises. It has to do with what taxonomic family or clade they are found in. Grab some ruin fragments. I'm actually not going to kill that one though. We can get several later on if and when we need them. But we have a new group of enemies up ahead. And this is the demi-humans. Demi-humans, pretty fun little enemy, not too difficult. Later on we'll learn that if there is a leader among them, killing the leader will cause them to be scared and thus not actually fight you at all anymore. But they can drop some pretty cool items. They can drop string, which is important for the roped version of the fire pots and other consumable pots. They can drop glass shards, which are absolutely useless, but they can also drop glowstones, which I really appreciate. Especially because we can't craft them just yet. But let's just ride by, do a little bit of killing here. And I'm missing because I'm fighting on the wrong side. There we go. There we have it. Excellent. Good clean kills. Another glowing skull. We might actually have enough. Oh, another glowing skull. We might have enough for the upcoming merchant just from glowing skulls alone. So we're actually going to go right on past the merchant. He is right here. Another smoldering butterfly as well. But what I want to do is go over this way. There are some slimes up here, and I'm going to tell you right now, don't bother killing them. Yes, they can drop a few things that might be helpful, like the hefty beast bones, normally found in large carnivorous beasts like bears and rune bears. But normally they drop nothing, and if they do drop anything, it's often just a glass shard, which is again useless. But this right here, this is a Spirit Spring. Spirit Spring allows us to use Torrent to reach incredible heights, and that is what we're going to show off right now. Every Spirit Spring has kind of a general direction it tries to push you into. Now you can go away from that general direction, but just be aware you may not like where you land. In order to activate it, you just stand in it and jump. This is sending me right towards another one, and if I jump again, this is bringing me all the way up to behind the first step. Very, very, very cool. And if I want to reverse that, all I need to do is find where the Spirit Spring is and jump towards it. They increased the radius that the Spirit Spring catches you, and as long as you see the haze around Torrent, you can drop from any distance and survive. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to run and jump, and as long as I see it, there it is, I'm going to land just fine. Problem is, now I landed among some skeletons. I'm going to let these guys get up just a little before I charge R2 them. There's the crossbow one, let's kill him. But notice, this one is trying to reanimate. These enemies will come back unless you kill them a second time, or if you have holy damage. As long as you have holy damage, they will die and they will stay dead. And what do we get? Oh, we got human bone shard. The human bone shard, it has its uses, just much later on. It can be used to craft rancor pots, alluring pots, script stones, and grace mimics. Typically farm from those skeletons. But over here, we get the gold pickled foulfoot. Using a gold pickled foulfoot will increase your rune acquisition by 30% for 3 minutes. I think I've actually been saying the opposite about the silver and the gold. So the silver increases your item discovery, whereas the gold increases your rune acquisition, which is really beneficial. Once you can start crafting these, or once you have enough, killing a boss without having one of these active is really just completely nonsensical. You will easily get your runes back simply by having one active. Now, let's make our way back over here to the merchant, grab this smoldering butterflies, and like I said, we want 4,800 runes. Currently we have 3,900. We should have enough just in the golden runes alone.
What do you need? I don't want any trouble.
So if we go to the sell option, we have 10 of these. I only need, quick, do the math, 5? 5 ought to do it. There we go, we'll have a little bit left over, and let's see what he has to offer. He has neutralizing boluses. We've mentioned boluses in terms of crafting, but neutralizing boluses, which alleviates poison buildup and cures poison. Stanching boluses, which alleviates blood loss. Stimulating boluses, which reduces your sleep buildup. Smithing stones, which this was actually changed in a patch quite a while ago, but a lot of the merchants now sell a limited supply of early smithing stones. I do want to buy all 3 of these. As I said, every time you go up 3 upgrades, you need 12 smithing stones. So to go to the first 3, so to go to a +3 weapon, I need 12 smithing stones. 1, you need 2, then you need 4, and then you need 6. So buying all 3 of these will give me a grand total of 4 as of right now, meaning I can bring 2 weapons up to a +1. Then we have the Armorer's Cookbook number 2, which allows us to craft firebone arrows, fletched firebone arrows, firebone bolts, and neutralizing boluses. In other words, this little item here that can cure poison. We definitely want to pick that up. We also have the broadsword. I mentioned this in part 1. If you start as the confessor, you start with the broadsword. Otherwise, this is the only chance you have of picking one up in the game. It comes with the same square off skill as a longsword, but it is a straight sword. And being a straight sword means we can power stance this with the longsword. So let's pick that up. The club comes with Barbaric Roar. You can see there, it rallies the spirit, increases your attack power, but it also changes your heavy combo. It creates this very, very wild looking combo that can deal a lot of damage and a lot of stagger damage to enemies. Plus, it is strike damage. And I keep talking about strike damage. Having a variety of damage types is very important, especially in the early game when our attacks aren't very powerful and we need to play to the enemy's weaknesses. So I'm going to grab the club. And then there's also the short bow. Now the short bow, I prefer the long bow, but we can't get one just yet. The short bow has the skill Barrage, which is an ability to fire off a rapid succession of shots faster than the eye can see, but the damage is reduced. So, and the range on the short bow is only 29. It's not very long. Longbow is significantly longer, but in terms of pulling enemies and dealing damage, especially aiming it and getting criticals or at least getting attacks of opportunity on enemies' heads, that can be really useful. So we are going to pick up the short bow. And then with the remaining runes we have, I'm not going to buy arrows or bolts, and I'm not going to buy the iron round shield. I half recommend this shield. I half recommend it because, as you can see, the skill is no skill. That's not a mistake. No skill is actually an Ash of War you can purchase from a vendor later on, and the reason this is valuable is because if you want to hold a shield in your left hand, but you don't want to parry or you'll use a shield bash, you want to use the skill of the weapon in your right hand, having no skill on the shield means as you hit the skill, even if your shield is out, you will do the skill of your right hand armament, your right hand weapon, so it can be really useful. The problem is the guard boost at 41 and the physical damage negation of only 80 means you're going to be taking quite a lot of chip damage, and just a couple of hits, your stamina is going to be gone, and you're going to be opened up for a lot of free damage by the enemy. I am, however, going to buy the last two notes that he has: Land Squirts and Stone Digger Trolls.
All done? Well, be on your way then.
And I want to take a look at those right now. So I'm going to go all the way over to my info. We've read these two. Now we have Land Squirts. Land Squirts are soft, where they touch the ground, and poison will cause them to rupture. So kind of two hints here. Number one, if you can get to the point where they are attached to the ground, you can get a critical. We saw that just with the heavy charge attacks. Or if you have poison, you can overload them with poison and they will explode, which is really fun. And then there are Stone Digger Trolls. The heads of the Stone Digger Trolls bear old wounds. In other words, if you can, aim for the head of the Stone Digger Trolls. We will do that with an upcoming boss, but just keep in mind that once you hit them, typically they will actually cover their head and you won't be able to get them as frequently. Right, we are actually just about out of time, but what I want to do is I'm going to head to the one cave here that we're going to explore next time, the one that Bach was telling us about, and then I do want to show off the power stance, and then we'll have to call it a part there. Dark for just a moment here, just until we get to the Site of Grace. If you rest at the Site of Grace before you talk to Bach, you may be a monster.
Oh. What are you doing here? You must leave this place at once. They'll rush in and beat you to a pulp. You'll end up just like me. Oh. What are you doing here? You mustn't.
So something's happened to Bach. He's already said how he was scared of this place, and here we are. I don't know if we're here to avenge him or just to explore, maybe a little bit of a combo. But while he's writhing in pain next to us, let's show off the power stance ability. So let's get rid of the Lord Sword's Greatsword. We'll equip the Broadsword in our right hand 1 slot. I'm going to use R1 to go all the way to the left hand 1 arm slot, or armament slot. Put on my longsword. Now, if I do R1s, looks pretty similar. If I do in R2, same thing. That's the charge R2 of the broadsword. If I do L2, which is the skill, I just get into the square off animation. But when I try and block, when I use L1, you know, it's a little bit dark here. Tell you what, sorry Bach. We'll be right back. Oh, and I can't leave because I'm in a cave, of course. Well, let's head topside. I want to show this off with proper lighting because it's just way too cool to be seen in such a dim cave. This is much better. But when you do the L1, you actually get the power stance moveset. So this is a returning feature from Dark Souls 2, but unlike in Dark Souls 2, you don't need to meet the stat requirements by 1.5 times as long as the weapons are in the same category, and there are just a few exclusions. We'll talk about them when we get to them, but with just a few exclusions, you can power stance. And it even has its own combo. Very, very powerful. And it even has some new jumping attacks. That's the jumping R2, but the jump L1, really, really cool. Sprinting L1, rolling L1. There are a host of awesome attacks with the L1 as long as you're power stancing some similar weapons. Well, on that note, that is actually going to do it for this episode of Everything Possible in Elden Ring. Next time, we're going to be starting here in the coastal cave. We'll be helping out Bach to the best of our abilities. We're going to be taking out a pair of bosses in the next episode. And, well, I think we'll actually make some progress. But then again, I feel like I've said that before. If you learned something, please leave me a comment below. Let me know what you learned. And if I missed something, or if you have a better strategy for anything we've done today, maybe it's taking out Gatefront Ruins, maybe it's the Caden Mounted Warriors, leave that down below as well so we can all keep learning. And if you made it this far and you found this video to be even slightly entertaining or you enjoyed it, leave me a like, subscribe if you haven't. It would really help out the channel a lot. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.